Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media.
Welcome home to the native. Landing on a podcast space destined for greatness. 60 minutes or so hit, not too long for the grave shit. High level combo, politics in a way that you can taste it, then digest it. Politics touches you even if you don't touch it, so get invested. Cross the T's and dot the I's. Gillum back to get 'em. Stand on business with Rye. You could have been anywhere, but you chose us. Native Land Podcast, the brand that you can trust. Yes.
Please welcome to the stage the host of the Native Land Pod, Angela Rye, or CEO of Impact Strategies. Welcome. Tiffany Cross, fellowship personality, who is a Lamberson author.
Hey everybody!
Talent player and former elected official.
Not on yet, but hey everybody! Welcome home, y'all! Welcome home, y'all!
Welcome home.
And please welcome our panelists, U.S. House of Representatives from Texas 30th Congressional District, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Voting rights activist, Crystal Mason.
All right, Crystal. Yeah. Say what's up, y'all. Crystal.
Hey everybody!
Welcome home, y'all.
Welcome home, y'all. All right. So we are going to get into a conversation that is all too familiar with so many of us on Native Land Pod. Every week we're talking politics and culture, and we are thrilled to be here at Essence Fest. Y'all make some noise. We're just so grateful to be with y'all today. Absolutely. We're talking today about the politics of the attacks on Black women, and we are seeing it happen on every single side. In fact, today, there's someone who's missing amongst us. We have a good friend of ours named Marilyn Mosby. How many of you all know Marilyn Mosby? Right? So she was the Baltimore City State's attorney. She was recently convicted, wrongfully so. There's a petition out for her pardon right now, asking President Biden to pardon Marilyn Mosby. That is live. If you just type in Google Marilyn Mosby pardon, you can sign that petition. Why am I bringing that up right now? She was supposed to be on this stage with Jasmine and with Crystal and with us today, but her judge in her case said she could not travel. So Marilyn is sitting at home with an ankle bracelet right now, not with us because of injustice at the Justice Department. So we ask y'all to pray for her, but also sign that petition. So today we're talking the politics of the... Hello? Oh, my mic went off for a brief. But the politics of the attacks on Black women. And so we have two women who have experienced that on every side, both before you were in the halls of Congress to now. And of course, Crystal, everything that you've experienced in your case. So we want to get into that today. And I just want to open the floor to you first, Jasmine, just to say something to the audience.
So what's up, Essence? Listen, somehow they ended up with two Texans. So we'll get into that nonsense and what all goes on in Texas. But, you know, I'm happy to be here. The people that run Native Land have been heroes of mine for a very long time. So, like, please, please, please clap it up for these folk again. Because there is a world in which they would silence voices such as theirs. And so I want to make sure that we continue to support those that are going to tell our very real stories on our behalf. So let's make sure that we continue to support them. But as many of you may know, I had a little issue with a colleague here recently.
A little issue?
A little issue. Okay. But she learned what it is to come for a Black woman. And, you know, I didn't necessarily plan to walk into work that day and have those kind of issues, but don't come for me unless I send for you.
Come on.
So, no, but this is a very important conversation because one of the things that I learned while I ended up clapping back on Marjorie Taylor Greene in the way that I did, it was more so about defending myself in that moment and making sure that she learned and everybody else looking that you cannot disrespect me. I was duly elected just like she was. And so I was there to serve and work. on behalf of the people that elected me. But more importantly, what I didn't realize is that it would open this conversation about the struggle that so many women of color have at work and in their workplace and the disrespect that they are enduring. And to see me sit in my authentic self, empowered, made them feel as if there is a real conversation to be had and that there is something that can be done. So I appreciate the fact that we're actually having constructive conversations around what does it look like to exist in your workspace and not be disrespected.
That's right.
I love that, Congresswoman. And I got to echo Angela's words. Thank you for what you do, because, you know, long before you were elected, I was a fan of Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, because you always had a clap back ready to go. But what I love is that it was backed and rooted in conviction in your beliefs. And you show up. When you defended yourself that day, you were defending all of us who had to grit our teeth in the face of some mediocre person who don't look like us, who has the temerity to question our worth. So we so appreciate you. And I want to appreciate you all, because when you all listen, you send videos. This is a conversation. We say welcome home, y'all, because we want y'all to know y'all are welcome home. And I think it's no better way to bring Crystal into the conversation to say welcome home to you, sister, because what you have gone through, Crystal, is abhorrent. Crystal was arrested for casting an inconsequential ballot, should be pointed out. She was then acquitted. My attorney will help me if I say something wrong. She was acquitted, and then a higher court overturned that acquittal. So
Actually,
here,
just real
correct
quick,
me.
Just real quick, the reverse. And again, I echo everyone's welcome to your home right here. But as Tiffany was alluding to, Crystal, in your case, Crystal went after having in previous years encountered the criminal justice system in a federal way and having caught a felony. Many years later, she goes to try to do what many of us are asked to do, and that you do in some ways without even thinking. It's just a motor skill. She went to cast her vote in the election, to have her voice counted. And when she got there to vote, she was informed that she wasn't on the voter rolls and therefore needed to cast what is called a provisional ballot. A provisional ballot is what they give you when your name doesn't show up, which means there may be a question about whether or not your vote can be ultimately counted. It is the right procedure to have taken. What happens after the election polls close is those ballots then go through what we call a curing process, where they determine, can it be counted or can't it? What was determined that Crystal's ballot could not be counted, and that's what Tiffany meant by ultimately an inconsequential ballot. A ballot cast, a ballot then gone through the curing process, determined it couldn't be cured, and therefore it had no impact on the election. But because of the downright dirty political right-wing tricks that are happening in Texas and in Florida and in many other states throughout the country, they decided to want to make an example of this woman who was only doing what we ask her and you and us to do every election cycle, which is simply to show up and have your voice heard, your vote counted. Well, when she did that, the conservative regime, white male largely led, decided that they were going to make an example, decided to prosecute her for voting fraud, for casting a vote on a ballot that didn't get cured, wasn't counted, didn't impact the election. They ended up winning a conviction, sentencing her to 5 years in jail, y'all. There are people who commit homicides and don't get 5 years in jail, certainly don't serve it. But for exercising her democratic right, ended up having to get 5 years. She went through the adjudicatory process to have it appealed. And on appeal, a higher level court in Texas decided that one very key element that existed, that didn't exist in her case, was you have to knowingly go out and break the law. Crystal didn't realize that she was not eligible to vote. And even if she did, the vote was never, even though cast, was never counted. So it never impacted the election. So the court said, no, we've got to vacate, get rid of that earlier conviction, and she should be set free. And y'all, as we said, that's right, 6 years. 6 years. 6 years of this process this woman's gone through and endured. 6 years. 6 years of persecution. Well, she gets the appellate court to side with her on the side of right.
Andrew, let her tell this part.
The Republican.
And do y'all know what happened next?
28 days later, the DA filed to the higher courts again, criminal courts of appeal, to reverse my acquittal.
So if you didn't hear that, I'm going to say it louder. 28 days after the vacated sentencing, the vacated verdict, the DA's office decided that they were going to file another appeal to reverse the appellate court's decision to reinforce the original penalty of 5 years felony conviction against this woman. That's the kind of injustice that's taking place right now. You know how many of us say or have heard people say, if I was alive during the civil rights movement, I would have been marching with King. They wouldn't. We're in that moment right now. That moment is right now. And so, Crystal, in the spirit of that, I would love for you to tell this audience and the rest of us and those who will be listening to the podcast next week, what can we do to be of help to you? What has this been like for you? How have you survived it? And then how can we help you continue to survive it as we beat back this injustice?
I would like for you guys to go vote. That's exactly what we need to do. In order to change the situation I'm in, we got to get up and we got to go vote. You guys got to remember, everybody that was that had something to do with my situation, the judge, the prosecutor, the DA, they're all elected officials. So if we go out and vote, we can make that difference right there. And this has been overwhelming. I was on something called supervised release. So in 2018, when they told me I was convicted of illegally voting for filling out a provisional ballot that never counted, I had to go back to the feds. I had to go back to prison and do 10 months for catching a new offense that I'm acquitted of right now. So I had to go back and do time, come back out. I lost a good job. Job let me go because they said adverse publicity, meaning I had a high-profile case. Sorry. Yeah, so I had a high-profile case, so they let me go. So I lost insurance, a job, and everything. So it's been devastating to me and my family. And 6 years out on the appeal bond, over 6 years, and finally getting the acquittal, March of 2024. And like I said, 28 days later. Now I don't know what's gonna go on. So I need you guys to go vote. Look like 2024 is we really need this. So this is what I'm asking. I started an organization, Crystal Mason, the Fight Against Voter Suppression. I go out and share my stories so I can let people know that if you're ineligible in Texas, if you completed your time, you're eligible to vote.
That's right.
You know, so I go out and share my stories and let people know exactly who I am and what I went through, and this is why this is so important to me.
Can you name the organization again and where they can contribute?
The organization is Crystal Mason, the Fight Against Voter Suppression. And you can contribute and look up my information up on the crystalmasonthefight.org.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Tiff, I know you were going to weigh in earlier, and I think it's so important for us to have. Oh, hello, is this one? Okay. Can y'all just try to keep those on consistently? It is a live podcast recording. God bless you and your families backstage. Okay, Tiff, I was saying, reclaiming my time, that you were trying to say something earlier, and I wanted to make sure you weighed in. It's so important that we're having these conversations because people might watch movies and think things like this could never happen, and they're happening every single day, and we don't have the resources to ensure that there are platforms like Crystal. Crystal, your story is so important, and you will tell it over and over again. Sis, we are so grateful for you. Tiff, I know you were going to weigh in.
Well, first of all, thank you, Crystal, for your testimony. And not only for your testimony, because they're trying to bleed us by 1,000 cuts. And you didn't lay down and bleed. You were standing up and fighting. And I want you to know you are not fighting alone.
That's right.
You have us. You have the people in this audience who are going to go out and know your case and contribute and register to vote and register Big Mama and cousins and everybody this upcoming election, because while everybody else is talking about how old one candidate is, even though they real close in age, we not talking about a convicted felon with 34 counts under his belt, an accused rapist, a xenophobe, a misogynist,
Project
and somebody who is
2025.
Thank you.
Okay.
Somebody who's politically inept, and his first job in government was as president of the United States. Thank you, white America. We need to be focused on what the real issue is. The other thing I will point out, while Crystal's attack is threatening her very life and livelihood, every last one of us on this stage has been attacked. and every last one of us has had our livelihoods threatened. When I met the Congresswoman, the white men who was running the state legislature were threatening to throw her in jail because she left to not participate in their foolishness.
Yeah.
When Angela spoke a truth, an honest truth that dared to make white folks uncomfortable, they tried to silence her. When my brother Andrew, who is so gifted politically in a way, who is covered and anointed in a way, when he tried to make tangible change and made white folks in Florida, which has become a safe haven for white supremacists, uncomfortable, they tried to destroy this man. When I spoke a truth that made white folks uncomfortable, they summarily canceled my show because they didn't honor you all and all the other people who listened to it. So none of us have the ability to lay down and die right now. So I just feel blessed to be in the company of other fighters. And to echo Andrew's point, whatever you're doing right now is what you would have been doing during the civil rights movement. So when they write this chapter of American history, think about what they will write about you and what role you played in righting the wrongs the history is putting before us right now.
Jasmine, you were Flavor Flav and Tiff in a good way, or the Amen Corner. When you just were like Project 2025. And I want to stop for a moment because Taraji, many of you all might have seen on the BET Awards, Taraji P. Henson talked about Project 2025. That day, the numbers on our Project 2025 podcast soared. People want to know about it. How many of you all are familiar with Project 2025 here? Oh, this is an educated audience. Well, for those at home who missed the pod, Jasmine, break it down for us real quick, because there's going to be more attacks if we let that happen.
Okay, yeah, I got to go back to the full circle part real quick. Listen, so what's so interesting, and a part of my story that most people don't know, is how tied to these two women specifically my story is. So Tiffany talks about when we first met. Listen, I was fleeing my state because even though I had been a criminal defense attorney for well over a decade at that point, I had been dealing in the criminal justice system for a very long time. I never had a warrant out for my arrest. Not until I became an elected state representative did I get my first warrant out for my arrest. And the warrant was out for my arrest about voting rights, because I decided that I was not going to sit there and allow them to take rights that my ancestors had fought and bled and died for away from my constituents. I felt like that was what representation looked like. And so when I decided that I was gonna leave the chamber, they decided to put a warrant out for my arrest. But let me take it back a little further, because I never wanted to be in politics, and even today I shake my head and wonder, what am I doing? But nevertheless, Crystal's story touched me in a special way. And I know it's gotta be some deltas in the audience. There we go. So we know that Delta is always about social action. And so what we do is we always show up to the state houses. So I showed up to the state house. I was not elected at this time. And I testified on a voting bill. And when I testified about what happened to Crystal Mason and why the law was broken. And they act like they couldn't hear me. So I then decided I was gonna show up and make them hear me. And so that's when I ran for office. I got elected to office. And as a freshman, we actually convinced the Republicans in the House to undo the mistake in that law. We actually rewrote it on behalf of Crystal, hoping that it would actually help her case. We did that. Republicans actually stood with us and did that. But ultimately, as you've heard, you know, it takes a lot for somebody to go through what she has gone through and to decide, instead of going home and crying about it, I'm going to be on the front lines. I'm going to make sure that there's legislative change. I'm going to make sure that nobody silences me. And I'm going to make sure that I encourage other people to go out and get these fascists out of office, because that's what Project 2025 is about. Project 2025, in short, because I know we're going to be short on time, it's about making sure you bow down to the orange Jesus. Okay, some of y'all will get that when you get home. Nevertheless, that's what it's about. My mom is a federal employee. She is what you would consider to be a career employee. And what they're saying is like, listen, lady, unless you are going to say that you are going to be loyal to the orange one, you will not have a job. That is number one. Number two, they're saying that we ain't nothing but sinners, which we are. I mean, you know. But nevertheless, they're saying that we need to have a country that is based on Christian principles. And the Jesus they pray to somehow tells me is the same Jesus that they use to justify slavery out of the Bible. That's the Jesus that they want us to look out for. In addition to so many other things, they want to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion because they say that if you are diverse, then you obviously are not qualified. And so right now, what is wild is that we already see this playing out. When they go after our reproductive access, that is a part of Project 2025. When they decide to delete the DEI offices, that is a part of Project 2025. When they install judges such as Eileen Cannon and the people that we have sitting in the Supreme Court, I was gonna call them something else, but I don't know what I can say here. When they install those people who are not following the law, but instead are deciding that they are going to bend to the will of one man and decide that they are going to come out with precedents that says that he can be a king, and they are crumbling our democracy in front of our eyes. So when Tiffany says, yeah, they both old, she right, they are both old. But there's only one person or one ticket that cares about democracy and is going to stand for it and respect the humanity that sits in this room. There is another side that is saying, you know what, them black folk that are going down to Essence, we want to get rid of that. We don't like them coming together. We don't like them talking about the real issues. We don't care about the struggles that are occurring economically or educationally when it comes to these black folk. And so while I know that no party is perfect, and I'm telling you, my party is not perfect, there is at least one party that is searching for a more perfect union. The other one is trying to tear us down.
Jasmine. How's that for a beach blonde, bad built? Y'all know the rest. There was a whole remake. Beach blonde, man. Y'all know. But you know, the other thing that I think is really significant that we don't always talk about, and I think as people try to unpack the hundreds of pages that is Project 2025, their organizations get protected when they do things that are partisan and political, like the Heritage Foundation, which is the architect of Project 2025. And this work they've been doing for years. Tiff, you talk about this on the podcast all the time. Crystal, I do want to come to you to ask you what makes you tap into your courage after an attack. There are a lot of people, not Jasmine and certainly not Crystal sitting up here, who get attacked and recoil. Andrew, you're the opposite of that. Andrew got attacked, got acquitted, and was like, I'm taking on the whole justice system himself. So I want to know what trait you have that you are endowed with that allows you to carry on courageously.
Well, I told you guys I did time before. So just imagine being a mother and raising kids in prison. That was the hardest thing I ever did. And I promised my kids when I get out, this will never happen again. So when I came back and I started going through this situation in regards to the illegal voting, I'm a provider, I'm a mother, and that's what gave me the courage to say that, no, I'm not gonna accept probation. No, I'm not gonna accept deferred adjudicate when I know I didn't do anything wrong. So no, I didn't. They offered me 10 years at first, 10 years time. Then they turned around and they offered me 10 years deferred adjudicate, like, hey, take something. No, and I went to trial. And when I went to trial, and a lot of people don't notice me becoming, while I was in the federal system, I became a certified paralegal. So a lot of people don't know, when they sentenced me to 5 years, I asked for an appeal. And anything that's nonviolent and up under 10 years, you can get out on the appeal bond. And that's the only reason. They didn't offer it. My attorney didn't offer it. At that time, I realized that he wasn't working for me. And I asked for an appeal bond. And that's the only reason why I was out. So you gotta know. And that's the problem. That's why we gotta have people in the office that's for us. And I'm gonna piggyback on Jasmine right here. When Jasmine won the Congresswoman, we were doing a protest. Jasmine has helped me, like, it was the winter storm, and I had housed people in my event center because it was cold. So I had people staying in my event center. Not only did she give me funds to help me out with that, but she told me, I got you. And I remember that when she became a congressman. She went up there and she did exactly what she said. She was fighting to get me free. And I really appreciate that. I remember.
Andrew, I think you made a really good point. Thank you for breaking down what happened with Crystal. We are talking about the politics of the attacks on Black women because we are going through it right now. But I just want to give a shout out to our brothers because I know y'all are going through it. And I would love to know from Andrew what keeps your fight, because when you hear what Andrew went through and he talks about it on a podcast, so you can go back and listen if you haven't heard, but little things, we were going through an airport together and Angela and I were going through clear TSA, and Andrew said, oh no, they took that from me. They took this man, an innocent person. He's convicted of nothing, broke no law, committed no crime, and they took this man's TSA, passport, everything, and tried to destroy him at every possible level. And he stands with us, and now his biggest quarrel is with me and Angela. So I wonder what keeps you going, Andrew,
and that
in that
is no
space.
small affair if you listen to the show, trying to compete with these two. Yeah, I appreciate the question, Angela. And
That's Tiffany, sir.
I was deliberately confusing the two of you to get a reaction from you.
You won.
But in seriousness, I was tearing up with you, Crystal, because still parts of when I hear other people's experience with the criminal justice system feels really traumatic to me. And I didn't spend any time in jail. But I know what it feels like to have the United States of America against insert name. It was your name. It was my name at one point. And as a person who have been elected and advocated and fought on behalf of people, I feel like I had a lot more courage and strength to fight for other people than I did for myself. Although I knew I did nothing wrong. You know how sometimes scripture tells you to believe what God says about you and not what they say about you? He has to give us that word because it's easy to allow the enemy's language and definition of who you are to seep in, especially when it's repeated to you time after time after time after time and is reinforced in all of the institutions and systems that they've built to put us under. And so what makes it so special, what you're doing, is that she didn't ask for this perch. She didn't ask to be anybody's hero, except for the children that she was raising. And even then, like most of us, you're just doing what you can do to keep up. And you feel like you're always, even though graceful above the water, paddling like you've never, paddled before in your life underneath the water. And when we think about the ways in which we should be performing when we see injustices, you're living it, you're breathing it because it showed up for you. But when we asked her what we could do for her, she didn't say, send me nothing. She didn't say, write the judge, write an op-ed, write a this, go lay down in front of the building, take out the prosecutor. She said, vote, because that's what they're most afraid of. That's what they're terrified of. That's what they're fearful of. They are terrified that y'all are going to wake up and realize that you have the power. So their job is to convince us, to confuse us, to deter us, to make us feel like we don't know and that we're too weak and that the process is too difficult for us regular people to understand, so that we then disempower ourselves, so that we check out because it's too hard. Jasmine didn't check out. Crystal didn't check out. I'm not checking out, and neither is Angela or Tiffany. I got it right. Because what I know for sure is that while your name may be on those legal papers, she is simply a harbinger, an example, a shot over the bow. It is meant to drag her and the rest of us through so much trash and garbage that you make the decision that you never want to be dragged through that same trash and garbage. So guess what? Maybe I don't vote. Maybe I got a problem because I got a ticket the other day and I don't want a ticket to be confused with a felony or a conviction and what. Anything they can do to keep us out and to keep us from knowing what God gave us. Equality, superiority, morality, and thinking, and performance, and action, and everything. We're too good to be taken out, and that's how you survive 400 years of degradation, tyranny. subjugation and slavery. When you know, not know, but when you know, not because the Son of God has already told us that it's promised. That's it. That's how I got over. And I know that that's how you're getting over, because I'm listening to your life experience, y'all. She didn't ask to be a hero, and that means neither did the rest of us. But we have to stand in the gap as if we were.
Andrew, I love this. And part of it is because, one, the doors of the church are now open. We have these moments regularly on the podcast. Yes, we take up some collections too. On that point, though, all jokes aside, there are some things that we need to do agenda-wise as we prepare for this election. There are a lot of folks who aren't excited about voting. You live with some of them. You are neighbors with some of them. You follow some of them on social media. They're not excited about the options. And so we've got to give folks things to be excited about. We have to get an agenda across the finish line. And we have to do that by advocating what's in our best interest, right? I think one of the things that I'm really struggling with right now is that Marilyn was the latest example, but she's not going to be the last example. Marilyn Mosby. There are other people who the Department of Justice is going after. This Department of Justice didn't do a review of the cases that Donald Trump took on to go after his political enemies. I would rather be challenging this Department of Justice to get it right than to be trying to figure out a bail fund and a legal defense fund for Jasmine just because she stood up for what was right for us in a committee hearing or on the House floor. And that is very well where we could be with Project 2025. So I would love for you all to start talking about calls to action for this audience. What can folks do at home? How many of y'all are voting in November? Woohoo! How many of y'all got family members who are saying they're not going to vote in November? Somebody said, I'll fight them because them hands didn't go up. Y'all were like, I wish they would. I love that. But we know that we're hearing it too much. How many of us are hearing it too much that folks don't want to vote? Right? So y'all, what should we be doing? Crystal, we got our marching orders from you, but there are some other things that we need to be doing. Vote and what?
My call to action would be whatever you can do. In this case, I would say Crystal's case. If you can contribute $5, $10, whatever you have, and I know the wealth gap doesn't give a lot of us disposable income, but whatever you have, contribute to this fund or whatever voting advocacy in your community. If you don't have any disposable income, which I understand, testimony is shout out to anybody who doesn't, you can canvass. You can show up. You can knock on doors. You can make sure your neighbors are registered to vote. You can volunteer to drive them to vote. And Angela always deflects when I say this, but I'm going to say this today. A lot of people will come and say, I want to do what you all do. Or they come to Angela and say, I want to be like you. I want y'all to know nobody on this stage set out to be famous. Nobody on this stage set out to walk a carpet. That was never the goal. We were always trying to build community, not brands. And so when I call Angela the chief of staff of the Blacks, because when y'all call, she answers, she fights, she works hard, and it gets exhausting doing that alone. So if y'all could help us in this fight, if everybody does a little, no one person has to do a lot. So whatever call to action you can do at the state, federal, or local level to help make sure they would rather see this country burn to the ground before they see somebody who looks like us run it, please get involved in whatever way. Door knocking, cash, phone banking, whatever you can do.
Go ahead, Crystal.
My call to action would be piggybacking on canvassing. Going out there actually knocking on doors and talking to people. I have walked in barber shops, I've walked up to people in parks and just held a conversation with them and just find out if they're registered, if not, and if y'all have the tools or know where to get registered. Guys, that's the ones we need, the ones that's not registered. We need to get them registered because everybody already raised their hand, so we know you're going. So that you need to commit to at least getting 2 people registered to vote and get them out there, and that's going to make the difference for us.
No, I was just going to say, I know we doing call to action, but I cannot skip over Andrew and what you said. And I don't know how many of you were thinking along the same lines as I was when Tiffany talked about the disenfranchisement that he has suffered with no conviction. Now, for those that believe that Donald Trump is like us, Kendrick Lamar got a song for you. They not like us. Because here's the reality. You have people that are considering voting for Donald Trump to be president of the United States, and he has 34 felony convictions. If Andrew has been disenfranchised without a conviction, you imagine how limiting it is for a president of the United States, who is arguably the leader of the free world, to have 34 convictions. Do y'all understand there's countries he can't even go into with convictions? You tell me how effective he is going to be for us if he can't lead this world, because that's what the president of the United States does. That's number one. Number two, no one would dare to treat him the way that Andrew was treated. I have never, for those of you that don't know, I practiced criminal law and civil rights law before I went into politics. I have never had a client that was out pretrial with over 80-something counts of felonies. They were sitting behind bars waiting on their day. Okay, I guess y'all ain't got no cousins. I do. And I'm telling you the reality. So I want you to understand that, honestly, Donald, if he cared to say that he was really going to talk to black folk about something that has disproportionately impacted us, such as criminal justice, because now he understands, because now he doesn't. He still don't understand, because he hasn't seen what we have had to live through, number one. But if he was smart, he would actually have an agenda as it relates to criminal justice reform. But in that debate, the debate that everybody's talking about, last I checked, he didn't talk about criminal justice reform. And supposedly the number one thing that is polling right now about what people care about is the economy. He ain't talking about that either.
Black jobs, though. Black jobs?
Wait, well, he did talk about the black jobs.
We doing our black jobs right now.
He did talk about we are doing our black job. Actually, our black job in November is to vote.
Hello. Hello.
That is our black job.
I think that's the podcast episode name now. I think we just changed it.
Yeah. But back to the calls to action. Sorry, my bad. I couldn't leave that there.
You should make that your next T-shirt, sis.
Your black job.
It's to vote in November.
It's to vote.
Y'all would buy that T-shirt.
You said something now.
All right.
You don't even need to give me no money on it. That's all you.
That's it. It's on you.
Listen, because you know it's all going to donations. Because I got to stick to my government income. That's the only check I can
take
earn.
The money, they'd probably try to charge you for.
Well, yeah, they would. Yeah, they would try to charge me. You know. Anyway, they do all kinds of stuff. I can't do it. I ain't Clarence Thomas. But nevertheless. Oh, y'all caught that one.
He not like us either.
He not like us. He not like us.
I'll C-walk on that one. And that C ain't for Clarence. Carry on.
So calls to action. Number one, there are spaces that we just cannot infiltrate. Right now, all of the data shows that let me just ask y'all, how many of y'all have a group chat? Whether it's your line sister group chat, your whatever it is. We all have these group chats, and they are safe spaces. Your family group chat, those are places that we can't infiltrate. And honestly, you are a lot more influential than any politician will ever be. I can talk until I'm blue in the face, and people are still going to say that I have an agenda. I do have an agenda, and my agenda is y'all. But nevertheless, somebody is going to believe that I have something else going on. So I need you to tell your stories. One of the things that I do, I was able to talk to Omega Psi Phi as well as Delta Sigma Theta. And both of them are organizations where you've got to go to college. The numbers show that if you go to college, chances are if you black, you had to take out student loans. Anybody in here ever had a student loan? Okay. So one of the other things that I ask is I ask in those rooms, how many of you have had your student loans relieved under this administration? Is there anyone in this room? Thank you. I got some. Amen. Hallelujah.
Can you guys stand up?
Hallelujah.
I think this would be good to even have this on the podcast. Wow.
Hallelujah.
Look at that.
Look at
that.
Wow.
All right.
Wow.
So let me tell y'all something. Y'all know why I can ask that room or ask that question in a room full of black college educated people? It's because I know my team. I know the numbers. There has been $157 billion worth of student loan debts that have been relieved. And people complain. No, that's a clapping moment, for real. Because while some people talking about a $1,200 stimulus check, some of y'all done got 6 figures off your back. So if you go,
okay. So, hey, your number. What's your number?
So,
$178,000.
Okay, now I have to stand up now.
Yeah. Oh, I want to hear her number. What's your number? $250,000. What's your number?
What is she? Junior Oprah.
I can't hear. 200,000. Oh, 170.
Wow.
137.
Wow.
165,000. That's a good.
Okay. What's it?
Two.
She said 260.
I'm doing my job. I know what I'm doing. So, okay.
270,000, she said.
Angela, not 270.
Now let me tell y'all something. I'm still in my feelings, so I don't want y'all to keep throwing these numbers out because my student loan debt ain't that high and it ain't been relieved.
Listen here.
But here's the deal. Like in all seriousness, one thing we don't like to do as black folk is talk about money. But if people can sit up here and act as if Trump gave them a stimulus check, which I want to correct the record, y'all need to holler at Auntie Nancy.
Democratic Congress.
Auntie Nancy Pelosi, who was the Speaker of the House, was the one that originated the bill, and it got through the Democratic House, the Democratic Senate, and all this fool did was slow down the checks because he wanted to put his name on them. That's number one.
That's
number
true.
two, it was more than one stimulus check. There were a total of 3. The other 2 were signed by none other than President Joe Biden. So if you want to say that you happy about stimulus checks that ain't coming back, let me put that out there too. Number one, you need to thank a Democrat. Number two, if people can get up and talk about how they got a $1,200 check and it came from Donald Trump, every single one of y'all that had $170,000, $270, $250, whatever it is, if it's $5, I'm gonna need y'all to go tell somebody. Because when people are talking about this administration has not worked for black folk, as I can see it, they are working for black folk. Now let me tell you, and the reason that this matters, because we are at the Global Black Economic Forum. It's because this is how we build wealth. I know that costs are still high. This is why you need to make sure that the Democrats are running the House, the Senate, and the White House, because we get it. I know y'all get mad because they get out there and they say things like the economy is great, it's great, it's great. I get it. They talking numbers, but I understand housing costs are still high. I know that the interest rates are still high. We don't set those, the president don't set those, but we have a plan. It's a plan that includes a stimulus. It's also a plan to be more aggressive on these student loan debts because we know that black folk have been disproportionately impacted. This means that you can get the home ownership you need to build that generational wealth. So while somebody want to talk to you about $1,200, I'm gonna need y'all to talk to them about some real dollars that have changed y'all's lives. And while that food may cost more, you got more money in your pocket to buy it.
Okay, so here's the thing. Now, I am very grateful for everything Representative Jasmine Crockett just shared. I just want y'all to know that the campaign is finally ready to advertise on our program, and so we could just say from now, this point forward, that's Joe Biden, he approves this message, because that was a whole campaign ad. So now maybe, y'all, we can get out of that host read they want us to do, because Jasmine definitely just had a whole advertisement for them. So that said, record that, tell that. I think they are recording it, AG. But I also want to just say, in this close, as we get ready to close, Tiff and Andrew, I'm going to come back to you. It is so important that we continue to engage with you on our podcast. We enjoy it. I hope y'all know how much we enjoy doing Native Land Pod, and we love the NLP fam. Please make sure you download and subscribe. And even more importantly, y'all, we're going to be talking some really, really important issues. I need you to pay attention to these petitions. We need to get a pardon for Marilyn Mosby. We need to ensure that Crystal Mason stays free. We need to ensure that Jasmine is never prosecuted. We need to ensure that we raise money for Andrew's legal defense fund. He's going to be mad that I said it, but it's true. That was a weighty and expensive defense, and thank God he is free. Get him his pre-check back. Who worked for TSA in here? I'm going to come see you. We need to get his pre-check back. Oh, everybody working today at TSA. All right. Well, I'm going to find one of y'all. But the only other thing that I'll say to you is please make sure that you vote, and I need you all to start pushing an agenda where we can actually get something done run up all the way until the Democratic National Convention and make sure they understand how important it is to hear from Black folks. I know soon Black Futures Lab, which also has a sister organization, the Black to the Future Action Fund, will be pushing out a Black economic agenda. Please make sure you share and support that as well. We are Native Land Pod, and we might have one more closing call to action.
Andrew didn't give a call to action.
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to up Crystal's bring 2 people to arrive with 5. The Congresswoman got at it in her comments. Joe Biden, the Congresswoman, Crystal, any of us, any of your favorite celebrities, they have a less higher influence on you voting than your own family members. It is family members who have the greatest impact in turning out voters to the polls, even though you hear all those advertisements. And so what is that? What do I mean by that? And I'll short circuit it. And arriving with 5, just list the other 5 members of your family who you question whether or not they're going to vote. They didn't told you they're not going to vote, or they're not talking about voting at all. If they're eligible, legally allowed to vote in your respective states, make it your job to arrive with 5. Get them there. That's your sole purpose on election day. If all of us did that, man, this thing I lost the race for governor in a state of 20 plus million people by 0.002%. All right? So if we all do that, that's how we make the kind of change we got to see.
There's people over here saying you won.
To God be the glory.
Yes.
He didn't see fit for me to serve
She is
there
yelling
today.
it. She mad about it still.
I'm
We
mad
are
too.
too, sis.
I'm
We
with
are
you,
too.
sis.
They voted for you.
We love
I
that.
love it. Can I just say real quickly, Angela, a lot of people reach out to us and say, come to Philly or come to Alabama, come here. We love doing live shows. We love connecting with you all. It does cost money to do. So we would love to come everywhere y'all invite us, but when you reach out, just know it usually has to come with a sponsor to get us all there. We got to stay. We have to have a venue for folks like you. So we're happy to be here at Essence. It's not the end of our live tour. We look forward to more tour dates. But
Black
if you have a budget, and
Black
Battleground
tour.
states, if you have a budget or control a budget or know somebody who controls a budget, I'm going to give you all Angela Rye's cell phone number. Do you have your...
Don't take that down. Nope. Don't take
Reach
that
out.
down.
We reach out. We would love to be
Who
in
knew
conversation.
that I was doing a podcast with trolls? Did y'all know? So anyway, this has been episode 27 of Native Land Pod. Welcome home, y'all. There are 117 days until the election. Not enough time. Thank y'all. We love you, Essex.
Thank you for joining the natives. Intentional with the info and all of the latest. Rod Gillum and Cross connected to the statements that you leave on our socials. Thank you sincerely for the patience. Reason for your choice is clear. We're so grateful. Took the oath to execute roles. Yeah, faithful. Preserve, defend, and protect the truth, even if painful. Welcome home to all of the natives. We thank you.
Welcome home, y'all.
What's
Welcome
up,
home.
sis?
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.